This is a story that spans 2 decades and 2 of the most savage mountains on Earth. It begins with a mother's triumphant phone call from the top of the world and ends with her son's body being identified via a zoom lens on the killer mountain. This is the tragedy of Alison Hargreaves and Tom Ballard, a family who lived, climbed, and died in the sky. The story of Alison Hargreaves and her son Tom Ballard is a testament to the human spirit's drive for adventure and exploration. Alison, a renowned mountaineer, climbed K2 solo in 1995 without oxygen or support, following her historic solo ascent of Mount Everest earlier that year. Tragically, she disappeared in a storm on K2 and was never found. Years later, Tom Ballard, Alison's 6-year-old son at the time of her disappearance, followed in her footsteps. He became an accomplished mountaineer, completing remarkable feats, including soloing the 6 great north faces of the Alps in winter. In 2019, Tom and his climbing partner, Daniele Nardi, went missing on Nanga Parbat, one of the world's most challenging mountains. Their bodies were later found on the mountain. The story of Alison and Tom is not just about mother-son bond, but also about the human spirit's pursuit of adventure and exploration. Their legacy inspires others to push boundaries and explore the unknown. There is a photograph of a woman climbing a sheer rock face, her body suspended against a void of blue sky. It is a striking image, but it is not the woman or the rock that makes it unforgettable. It is the prominent swell of her belly, round and heavy against the harness. She is 6 months pregnant, dangling thousands of feet above the ground on the treacherous north face of the Eiger, a wall of ice and rock so infamous it is called Die Mordwand, the murder wall, the baby inside her, kicking against the limestone as his mother methodically places her ice axes, will one day be told that he was literally born with ice in his veins. That baby was Tom Ballard. The woman was Alison Hargreaves. This story is not just about climbing. It is about legacy, about the weight of a parent's dream placed on a child's shoulders, and about 2 mountains, K2 and Nanga Parbat, that acted as the final, unforgiving full stops in their sentences. To understand Tom, you must first understand Alison. Growing up in Belper, Derbyshire, Alison was a girl who stared out of classroom windows, not at the playground, but at the distant hills. By 13, she was climbing. By 18, she had left home, marrying Jim Ballard, a fellow climber, and living a frugal life dedicated entirely to the mountains. Theirs was not a life of luxury. It was a life of passion, funded by odd jobs and gear shops, with the next peak always on the horizon. Alison was not just good, she was revolutionary. In 1993, she pulled off a feat that stunned the climbing world. She soloed all 6 of the great north faces of the Alps, including the Eiger, the Matterhorn, and the Grandes Jorasses, in a single summer season. It was a test of endurance and nerve that no one, male or female, had ever accomplished. She called her memoir A Hard Day's Summer, a quintessentially British understatement for a project that could have killed her 100 times over. But her masterpiece came in May 1995. Standing on the roof of the world, Alison Hargreaves became the first woman to summit Mount Everest solo and without supplementary oxygen. She carried her own gear, pitched her own tents, and refused so much as a cup of tea from other climbers to maintain the purity of the ascent. At 33, she was at the apex of her power. She had a 6-year-old son, Tom, and a daughter, Kate, waiting for her back home. In a satellite phone call from base camp, she spoke to Tom. "I want to do what you did, Mummy," the boy said. "I want to climb big mountains." Just 3 months later, Alison was on K2. The Savage Mountain is technically harder than Everest, a perfect pyramid of stone and ice that seems designed to kill. She was attempting to become the first person to climb the world's 3 highest peaks in a single year. The pressure was on, and the weather window was narrow. On August 13, 1995, Alison set out from the highest camp with a group of climbers from Spain, America, and New Zealand. Among those who turned back was Peter Hillary, the son of Sir Edmund Hillary. He looked at the sky, saw the danger, and made the hardest decision of all, to live. At 6:45 p.m., Alison Hargreaves stood on the summit of K2. It was a breathtaking achievement, but in mountaineering, the summit is only half the journey. As she began her descent, the mountain turned. A ferocious storm erupted, engulfing the peak in hurricane-force winds and blinding snow. Allison and 5 other climbers who had made the summit were caught in the open. They never made it back. Days later, searchers found a blood-stained anorak, a boot, a harness. Her body was spotted far below on the glacier, likely blown off the face by the gale. Back in Scotland, 6-year-old Tom and his sister were told their mother wasn't coming home. His father, Jim, was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered family. One might assume that tragedy would breed fear. For Tom Ballard, it seemed to breed only destiny. He grew up in the shadow of K2, not just of the mountain, but of the loss. The family moved to the Scottish Highlands, where the weather is brutal and the hills are a good training ground for the soul. Tom was quiet, intense, and utterly obsessed. In 2009, at age 20, he climbed the north face of the Eiger, the very face his mother had climbed while pregnant with him. He later joked about the premonition of it all, but there was a seriousness beneath the humor. He was not just following in her footsteps. He was trying to complete a conversation that had been cut short. Then, in the winter of 2014, Tom set out on a project he called Starlight and Storms. He would attempt to solo all 6 of the great north faces of the Alps, the same ones his mother had climbed in the summer of '93, but he would do it in winter, alone, in conditions of ice and darkness that would push a human being to the absolute limit. For 92 days, he battled across Europe, climbing frozen waterfalls and vertical sheets of black ice, sleeping in snow caves, utterly alone. When he finished, he became the first person in history to do so. He was 26. The climbing world sat up and took notice. Tom Ballard, the new king of the Alps. The headlines read, he had emerged from his mother's shadow, not by ignoring her, but by surpassing her technical achievements. He was polite, shy almost, but when asked why he did it, his answer was simple. It's not about risk, he said. It's about passion. Mom understood that. By 2019, Tom had set his sights on the Himalayas. He teamed up with Italian climber Daniele Nardi to attempt an ambitious new route on Nanga Parbat in Pakistan. The mountain has a nickname, Killer Mountain. It is notorious for its avalanches and sheer scale. For Tom, it was the logical next step. His mother had died on the world's 2nd highest peak. He was taking on the 9th. On February 24, 2019, Tom made his last satellite phone call. The weather was closing in, but they were pushing up the Mummery Spur. Then silence. Days turned into a week. A massive search was launched involving drones, helicopters, and fellow climbers. The world watched and held its breath. The name Ballard carried a heavy weight, and the parallels were too stark to ignore. Jim Ballard, Tom's father, who had lost his wife 24 years prior, now waited for news of his son. For over a week, the mountains refused to give up their secret. Finally, on March 9th, a Basque climber named Alex Tsaikin, scanning the mountain with a telephoto lens, spotted 2 small shapes on a rocky ledge at 19,000 feet. The images were sent to the families. The Italian ambassador confirmed the worst. The bodies of Daniele Nardi and Tom Ballard had been found. They were just a few hundred meters from the summit. A friend of the family, reflecting on the double tragedy, perhaps said it best. They described the Ballards not as a family haunted by death, but as a family who lived their days as tigers. Tigers live hard, fast, and dangerously. They occupy a world far above the mundane safety of the plains. Alison Hargreaves died on K2 at 33, doing what she loved. Tom Ballard died on Nanga Parbat at 30, doing the same. In the shadow of the Eiger, where one life began and another legacy was forged, the mountains remain, silent, patient, and utterly unforgiving. If the story moved you, like and share it with a friend who loves adventure tales. And subscribe channel, hit bell icon for more stories. Comment below.